Hey everybody, it's Adina here from International Empowerment and Immigrant Finance. Speaking today about student loan forgiveness and how to figure out if you might be eligible. This is a really timely topic at the time of this recording because the Supreme Court of the United States is actually going to be hearing oral arguments in two cases involving the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness plan on February 28th, 2023. Those cases are the Department of Education versus Brown and Biden versus Nebraska. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but just kind of larger, irrespective, regardless of what happens in those cases and with Biden's loan forgiveness plan, some other options that might be available for you for loan forgiveness. And we'll also talk about what you can do if none of those options do apply, which is often the case for many people. So just like big picture, why is this important? Especially for folks who are interested in thinking about their financial planning long term and also their other goals, their personal goals, their professional goals. How does this all weave together? Well, I would argue that it's really important to learn about your options for reducing your student loans or even just managing your student loans so that you can avoid feeling so overwhelmed about them and you can feel more in control with your financial planning to get to a place where you do have financial peace of mind. Because although student loans can be really large and significant, and many people in our generation are facing them, it doesn't have to be the be all end all. You can still have a really good financial plan. You can still build wealth while you're paying down student loans. And it's just one piece of the puzzle of your financial plan. And for those of you who are, my folks interested in like social impact business and thinking about your purpose, this is one of those things where it's really hard to actually think clearly about your purpose and what you're meant to do in this world, who you're meant to help when you're feeling really overwhelmed by a big financial thing like student loans. So getting a plan going around that, learning more about your options can help open up space so that you can have that area of your life figured out and focus more on areas that you want to be focusing on, like how you can be making a difference and an impact in the world and helping other people. So back to the Supreme Court case coming up for the Biden administration's loan forgiveness plan that I mentioned. Again, it's going to be oral arguments on February 28th, 2023. The court is going to be looking into the constitutionality, the legality of Biden's loan forgiveness plan, which offers up to $10,000 in loan forgiveness for federal student loans, specifically for people who are making $125,000 or less per year. And it offers up to $20,000 for those who have received Pell Grants while they are in school. The reason it's in litigation and why it's before the Supreme Court right now is that 6 states filed a lawsuit against the policy, arguing they would lose tax revenue as a result of the plan. And the administration has argued that those states don't have standing to sue, which means they don't basically have like a basis to be bringing the lawsuit, right? That they're not the ones impacted. That's a common way to challenge lawsuits, by arguing that the party bringing the lawsuit doesn't have standing. And the government's also arguing that they do have the authority to provide the loan forgiveness under the law through the HEROES Act, which allows the federal government to forgive student loan debt in times of national emergency. So that's kind of big picture what's going on at the court. And we'll all have to stay tuned to see if that loan forgiveness program can go forward. At this time, it cannot go forward. I know a lot of people are really excited about it, and then it got held up in litigation. So we are just in a waiting game right now, and it's in the hands of the Supreme Court. But there are some other ways that people can get loan forgiveness, and there are some other ways that people can manage their loans that I'll speak about in case it could be helpful for you going through that. Let's just kind of dig into why we want to be thinking about this, even if it's a topic that feels really overwhelming to you, which I totally relate to, by the way. I have student loans from law school. So I totally get the overwhelm. I have definitely experienced that, especially before I had a plan myself. It was just something that just felt like so overwhelming, right? And with debt, especially massive debt like student loans, it can make you feel really stuck. It can make you feel like your options are limited, that you don't know what to do, that you don't have that control. So getting a plan and figuring your options again is a way that you can find more control in this situation. And you might realize that you have more options than you thought, or that it's actually not as bad as you thought it would be. So ignoring it, avoiding looking into this is really the worst way to deal with student loans, because it's not like it's going to go away just because you're ignoring it, right? It's kind of like if, you were living in an area with a lot of hurricanes, like maybe Florida, and you were told that there was a huge hurricane coming directly to your area, and it was like 99% chance it was going to be striking the area pretty bad, there's going to be damage, and you were being advised to board up your windows and get water and stuff like that, and you were just kind of like, hands up, this is really scary, this is really overwhelming, I'm just not going to do any of that, and I'm just going to avoid this and hope that it doesn't happen, right? That's kind of what this can be like, unfortunately, if you ignore your student loans, because they can be so massive. But again, I want to encourage you to not feel bad if you are having that kind of reaction. It's really, really common. I work with people all the time as a financial coach, as an accredited financial counselor. I work with people who are really overwhelmed by their student loans and are avoiding them, right? And it's even getting to that conversation of getting some help, or even just doing a free consultation, can be often the most difficult part of it, because it means facing it. So if that's you, I totally get it. I totally understand. And just please know it's really, really common. You're not alone. You're not the only one that feels that way. And I have just seen so many people feel so much better and so much more relief when they start to learn more about what their options are, because they might realize an option that could be a really good option, or a way to minimize their payments where it's not taking up as much of their budget every month, right? So we want to look that hurricane in the eye. We want to see what we can do to prepare. And sometimes that's the best you can do, is just know all the ways to prepare, do them, and follow the path, right? And there is a way, often, out of this situation. So I want to now walk you through, really tangibly give some advice here on what to do if you are facing student loans and you want to see if you might be eligible for some kind of forgiveness. So the first step that we want to speak about is actually determining what kind of student loan you have, right? So you want to figure out if it's a public federal student loan or a private loan is the first question. And then if it's a public loan, what kind of loan that is with the government, because there's different kinds that have different programs available. So if you don't know the answer to that, you can go online and look up, on the government's student loan website. I'll link that below in the show notes. How to figure out what your actual loan situation is. And I'm going to share some information from this really great book called Surviving Debt by the National Consumer Law Center. It has some really good tips in here if you're facing student loan debt or any other kind of debt, to walk you through it. And they share that you can go to the National Student Loan Data System at www.nslds.ed.gov, or call 800-4-FED-AID, so 800-4-FED-AID, to start to figure out what type of loan you have. That's one way to get started. So the reason we want to know what kind of loan you have is because most of the forgiveness programs, unfortunately, are through only public federal loans. And I just want to acknowledge, especially for the many, many people in our community who are immigrants or family members of immigrants, that I know a lot of immigrant families are not eligible for federal loans due to immigration status. And so a lot of people have been forced in a situation where they have to take out private student loans or paying cash to get themselves through school. It's just incredible what people have to do. I mean, I was just talking to one of our students the other day who's been, working full time while going through school so that she can pay her tuition and hopefully did get a degree to put herself in a better situation long term. So lots of people are going through that. I will speak about private federal loan options in a moment. Just know that unfortunately, the options for forgiveness are a lot less in that situation. So let's talk about first the public federal loans, what types of cancellation or forgiveness is available when you're in that situation. So we talked about the Biden program. Again, just to reiterate, that's not currently available because there's a lawsuit about it. So it's pending at the Supreme Court, and we can't count on that program right now. So at the moment, there is no loan forgiveness through the Biden administration's program. The next option you can look into is a federal program called Public Service Loan Forgiveness. This is a program for people who are working in public interest jobs, for example, in the government or in nonprofits, right? Where if they work for essentially 10 years in that role, after 10 years, I see your comment, Hannah. Yes, I will keep the video up here. Thank you for asking for the replay. Well, and good luck at work. I'm sorry for the interruption. We have folks watching live on Instagram as I'm recording. So yes, so for the public service loan forgiveness, you have to do 10 years of payments while working in a public interest job, and then after that, if you have debt remaining on the student loan, it can be forgiven, everything after those 10 years. But there are, more specific requirements for that program. So look into it, but it's 10 years, otherwise known as like 120 qualifying payments, right? To add up to be 10 years of payments to be eligible for that program. There's also a loan forgiveness program for teachers, and this is for teachers who work 5 consecutive years. They're able to get at least partial forgiveness. So that's something to look into as well if you're a teacher. And then besides forgiveness, those are really the main ways I just covered, but there's also ways you can cancel your student loans potentially. Now, these are pretty rare situations, but it's worth looking into seeing if any of them apply to you, just in case, right? Because this could be a way to get rid of your loans potentially. So the first one, and I'm reading from the Surviving Debt book from the National Consumer Law Center. They lay these out really effectively. I'll just skim over them, but if you want more information, just check out that book or reach out to us. So closed school discharge, if your school closed while you were enrolled, or within 120 days of you leaving, you might be eligible to cancel your loan. Unpaid refund discharge. So if you left the school and the school failed to pay you a refund that you were owed, that could be a basis. Borrower defense to repayment discharge. If your school lied to you or otherwise misled you in convincing you to stay enrolled, or take out loans, in some cases engaged in misconduct violating state law, you might be able to seek a discharge of your loan in that situation. The false certification discharge. This would be a situation where at the time of enrollment, the state law disqualified you from getting a job in the occupation for which you were being trained. Or if you did not have a valid high school diploma or GED and the school did not ensure that you met the applicable financial aid eligibility criteria, or if the school forged your name on loan papers or check endorsements. These would all be ways to get cancellation, potentially through false certification discharge. Disability discharge is potentially another basis. If you have a total and permanent disability, you might be able to get a discharge of your loan in that situation. A death discharge, if you pass away, your family or estate would not have to pay back your loans. Again, this is applying just to federal loans. That doesn't apply to private loans. And then we talked about the forgiveness programs. And then lastly, bankruptcy could potentially be an option if someone files bankruptcy. But I will say it is very difficult to get student loans canceled under bankruptcy. You would have to show really serious financial problems that are likely to persist for reasons outside of your control. So that's a difficult one, but might be something there too. Now let's talk about ways to potentially cancel your loans if they are private student loans. So the main way is negotiation. So sometimes it's possible with private loans to negotiate for lower payments or to negotiate for the principal to be reduced. So the total amount you owe. That is something that you would probably want to seek assistance on if you're new to negotiation, right? And there are, nonprofits and lawyers who can help in that area. There also could be a basis if, let's say, you have not been able to pay your loans for several years. In some states, there's what's called a statute of limitations, which is basically like a cutoff date when, after a certain point, the private loan company wouldn't be able to continue charging you, and you could potentially have the amount canceled if it's been past the date for the statute of limitations. That's something you would definitely want to talk to an attorney about and get assistance with. And then lastly, bankruptcy. Again, just like with federal student loans, very difficult with private loans to get your student loans canceled when you file bankruptcy. But there is an exception that it may be possible if the school is not eligible to participate in federal student financial assistance programs. There might be a way through bankruptcy. So those are really the main ways for student loan forgiveness and cancellation. If I'm missing any you're aware of that were not covered in this book, please let me know so I can update my own knowledge and share that with people who reach out and ask, so we can make sure everyone gets access to this information. And then if you have any questions on any of that, check out that book I mentioned, or feel free to send us a message. Happy to answer any questions. And then lastly, I want to cover a couple things you can do if you do not qualify for any of those student loan forgiveness or cancellation programs, or in addition to, that you can do through your financial planning to deal with student loans. And there's two main things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about budgeting and increasing income. So budgeting is a great way, right? If you are dealing with big student loan payments every month, or maybe they're not that big, but it's still a lot to manage with all your other expenses, having an amazing budgeting system that is effortless, that's really a system that helps you plan all this and helps you manage the student loan payments, but also manage your other financial expenses and goals, like your investments, your retirement planning, your mortgage or your rent, your utilities, making sure you're able to pay money to have fun now and enjoy life. Like, managing all that in a system is what I love about budgeting. And there's lots of approaches to budgeting that frankly don't work, that I have found not to be very helpful, both for me and my family and also the students we work with. So we've developed a really great system combining some different approaches that we teach our students, called the goal-driven budgeting system. And it's a great way to really be focusing your budget around your goals and what you want to see happen in your life, rather than approaching it from a place where you're like punishing yourself, right, and restricting yourself. I'll just give a piece of advice. Any budget that makes you feel like you're punishing yourself is not going to work, because it's not going to be sustainable. So it's kind of like a crash diet, right? When you do a crash diet, after the diet ends or after you get through the week or whatever, you're just like, oh my God, give me all the pizza, give me the carbs, give me the pasta, give me the cake, because you've been depriving yourself. So you don't want to have a budget that makes you feel that way. You want to have a sustainable budget that's really about balancing all the different parts of your budget, including the student loans in this example, but that's really designed by your goals, because that's a lot more motivating. So if you're looking for help with that, please reach out. I'll put in the show notes a link for the free 30-minute financial strategy consultations we provide, in case that could be helpful for you to talk through any of this. And then lastly, the second thing you can do to help with managing your student loan payments is focus on increasing income. So I say this because at a certain point, you can budget perfectly. You can budget until your eyes turn blue. But if the total number in your budget is staying the same, there's only so much you can do, right? At a certain point, after you've reduced your expenses, maybe even negotiated your phone bill, maybe you move somewhere further away for lower rent, right? If that total number stays the same, you're still working with the same numbers at the end of the day. So the only way really around that, if your student loans are taking up a lot of your budget and taking away from other priorities, is to focus on increasing income. It's to focus on increasing that total number of your budget. And this is something a lot of people don't talk about, unfortunately, with personal finance and financial planning. They focus a lot more on the credit scores and the budget, and all that's super, super important and foundational. But increasing income is really the way where you can move the needle, where you can get yourself in a position where you're going to have more flexibility, more options and choices. And what's the best way to increase income? Well, it's starting a side hustle, right? There's several ways to do it. It can be negotiating your salary at work, moving to a job with a higher salary, but also starting a side hustle, starting a side business, starting a full business, whatever it is. And a lot of people, their next question when I talk to them about this is like, that sounds great. I want to do that, but I don't know what to start a business on, or like, I don't see myself as a business owner. So let me just say, anybody can start a business. I strongly believe like every single one of us has unique gifts and talents. And often there are things that we don't realize are gifts because they come so easily to us and so effortlessly. We don't even realize that other people struggle in those areas. So that's like my favorite thing, honestly, about financial coaching, and really why I also do business coaching, is because a lot of times it's just about getting clarity on what that gift is and then finding a way to monetize that, right? It could be being a consultant on the side. It could be having a side hustle on the side, something that can just give you some more flexibility so that you learn how to generate some income as well on your own, and you're not just dependent on a 9-to-5 job for income. So if that's something you're looking for help with, again, book that free 30-minute financial strategy consultation. I'd absolutely love to talk with you about that. I'm very passionate about helping people, get clarity on what their gifts are and how they can be developing more financial independence through that. So look forward to speaking with you. And I hope this episode on student loans was helpful. Again, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll sum up now the key takeaways from this episode. Number one, first, figure out what kind of loan do you have. Is it federal or private? And if it's federal, what kind of loan? That's going to allow you to figure out what your options are. Number two, look into what the options are for loan forgiveness and cancellation. I just summarized the vast majority of them, and you can call up your loan servicer and figure out what might apply to you, or look for assistance in other areas. And then number three, we talked about what are additional things you can do through financial planning to manage your student loans, which include both budgeting and increasing income. So again, hope this was helpful. Please share the episode with one person today who you know is stressed out about student loans, who could benefit from hearing some of this, and hopefully it can help them feel a little bit more control and assurance about what their options are. So thank you so much, and bye for now. Talk to you soon.